Hey guys, today I want to go over TBC Prot Valley. First thing I want to let you guys know, I have this written guide I put out. So I'm going to be going over this today. If you want to just check out the written guide, I'll have the link for that in the description. So you can just check that out. And I just wanted to have this written guide available. So even if you do watch this video, you guys can just reference this anytime you want really easily. You can have it open on your other monitor and find this information very quickly. So in the guide, we've got a table of contents over here. So you can quickly just move around to different spots in the guide based on their titles and hopefully find what you're looking for really fast. And I put the gearing section at the beginning because I figure that is one of the main things people will return to this guide for. First off, let's go over just general gearing philosophy. So for TBC, it's a little bit different of an expansion for gearing. You're not just equipping the highest high level gear you have, you're going to be picking gear based on a specific goal. So your goal might be high threat on trash, high threat on bosses, balanced approach where you have a lot of threat, but also good survivability for bosses, or maybe a really, really tanky set, a EHP set for surviving really high incoming burst damage. So there's lots of different kind of set archetypes you can be going for. And you just want to always have a goal in mind. You don't just put on gear for no reason. You should always be able to kind of explain why you have that gear on, and there should be a goal in mind when you're creating a set. And it's all about how all the pieces fit together to reach that goal. It's not about, oh, this is the highest level piece, we just throw it on. There's several different like caps you're going for. I mean, first off, you're going for uncrit pretty much always. A lot of the time you'll go for uncrushable, although part of this expansion is learning when it's okay to not be uncrushable and pump a bit more of that spell power and spell hit. It's pretty hard to reach the cap for that for bosses, but it's really important to understand what the cap is for trash because it's very easy to hit the spell hit cap for trash, and if you have excess spell hit, it's just going to be completely waste on trash. So you're going to want to use those stats to pump your spell power more for a trash set. We also want to think about the types of incoming damage we have. So one of the big ones is high volume, low damage. So that would be stuff like trash, where each individual hit isn't very hard, but there's a lot of them. So that's the kind of stuff where block value really becomes a lot better. And on the flip side of that, when you have like low volume, high damage attacks, so single hits that are really big, but they're not coming very frequently, then in those cases, block value becomes less valuable. And things like dodge and parry can become more valuable, and stamina is always just going to be king for surviving big hit burst damage like that. In TBC, we don't really have defensive cooldowns, and our threat tools are a lot more limited than later expansions. So one of our biggest tools we actually have is just the gear we're wearing. Before a pull, just kind of understanding what kind of damage you're going to be taking in that pull, what kind of threat you're going to want in that pull is really important because that allows you to equip the correct set beforehand. And since you don't have defensive cooldowns and you also don't have very many threat options, what you go into the fight wearing is going to play a major factor in how well the fight goes for you. For the most part, it is just a lot of gaining experience and learning when you're going to use each set. That'll just come with time. Let's look at some phase 1 gearing. So I've got several sets listed here with links. This is the phase 1 pre-biz set I put together. There are a million ways that you can make a phase 1 pre-biz set, but this is just an example. Some good things to go for just baseline are uncrushable, uncritable, as much spell power and spell hit as you can get after those two things. There are really only a few bosses in phase 1 that you're really going to want uncrushable for, but uncritable, you're basically always going to want that. But just to build a set that's going to be usable on everything, you can kind of aim first for an uncrushable set. And then if you find yourself with more time to kind of optimize beyond that, then you can start building some extra sets for maybe a little more optimized for trash, more spell power, not uncrushable, stuff like that. We're going to be going for about 11k HP on buff. That's a pretty good number to keep you alive. Then we've also got the Abyss Boss Threat set. So this one is going to be a critable set that just pumps tons of spell power and spell hit as much as you can. This one has almost 1,000 spell power, and this is before anything like Wrath of Air Totem. This is just self-consumes basically. On top of that, it's also going to have 9.66% spell hit. This is a very high threat set. You will be uncritable, you won't be uncrushable, and it only has 11k HP with buffs. This is something you'll use on some of the less hard-hitting bosses in Karazhan, probably. If you really want to parse, you can use on some other stuff. Then we've also got the Phase 1 base balanced, which is just an uncrush threat set, basically. So this one is uncrush. You're going to have almost 800 spell power still, 8.47% hit. You really aren't losing a ton, and you're gaining uncrushable, which is great. You're also gaining a bunch of HP. This is a pretty tanky set given how much threat it can also generate. Last but not least, we have the two-hand tank degen set. So this was something that popped up last time in TBC. It turned out the best way to actually do damage and parse as a prop ally was to basically just equip full ret gear, two-hander. You can use PvP gear to get your uncritable, get that through resilience, go stam gems, so you are able to somewhat survive in this situation. But let me show you guys some logs for last time in case you weren't here for this or weren't aware of it. This is just an example, but this is from Terran Gorfiend. Basically, there was 1 week in BT and Hyjal last time we played TBC where a prop ally came out of nowhere and crushed everybody's parses on everything by doing this two-hand approach. Basically, put the minimum points in prot to be counted as a prop ally, so he could get prop parses, and he actually tanked bosses. He was taking all the hits from bosses with a two-hander on. Stam gems to be able to survive, and resilience, as I mentioned before, for uncrit. But you can see here just how big of a difference this makes. So the top kind of standard prop allies that were wearing tons of spell power gear, just fully optimized to parse as a prop ally, 1400, almost 1400, 1300, almost 1300, etc. And then this guy, 2400 with the two-hand approach. So you can see here, he's just two-hander, full ret gear. All he's doing is seal twisting. You can see here, just seal twisting, casting Judgment of Blood. That's pretty much it. And you can see here, he actually took had 56 of Terran Gorfiend's attacks directed at him. I think that's probably all of them. Yeah, you can see here, he main tanked this. He took all the damage. So this is something you can do if you really want to get into the parsing stuff. Beyond that, though, it is just kind of a good thing to do sometimes. I mean, fights like Shade of Iran, where you're not really going to take any damage, things like that. So if you are fighting some bosses, which you for sure will be in nerfed Karazhan, there are some where they just don't really do damage. And if you want to optimize, then technically it is just kind of better to run the two-hander on those fights, even from a non-parsing perspective, just from a maximizing your damage perspective, while also minimizing risk. So something to keep in mind if you really want to optimize and have this whole extra set for this. It does actually make sense sometimes. If you want to parse, though, it is kind of going to be essential to have a set like this. So this is the two-hand tank degen set I threw together. There may be some other optimizations you could make. I didn't, spend a ton of time on this because this is a fairly French thing. But yeah, something to keep in mind if you're interested. All right, next let's look at some vanilla items that remain relevant throughout TBC. Petrified Scarab is a great example from AQ40. For resistance fights, this can be really good. It gives you 100 resistance, and that goes down by 10 every time you take a hostile spell. It lasts for a minute also. One of the cool things about this trinket, though, is a lot of spells that can be resisted don't actually remove any of the resistance. So things like elemental melee attacks don't remove the resistance on this. So as long as you're only taking elemental melee attacks, let's say from like Hydros or Illidan Fire Elementals, this is just going to stay at 100 and it lasts a minute. You're going to get pretty crazy value out of this. But there are a lot of spells too that do reduce this. For example, on Illidan, like when he shoots fireballs at you, I think also the fire on the ground can remove this too. Next, Wrath of Cenarius. This one is awesome. You can get it in Silithus. It is a pretty tedious grind, but can be done in pre-patch if you're watching this while we're still in pre-patch. It has a 5% proc chance for 132 spell power. This is way more spell power than any ring in TBC has. The only thing is it lasts 10 seconds, 5% proc chance. But it also has no internal cooldown, which means if you have enough mobs, you can actually keep this up pretty reliably. It procs off Consecration's initial cast, not the individual ticks, but just the initial cast. If you have enough mobs, you're very likely to proc it. Another thing you can proc off is the Force Reactive Disc. You can guarantee procs by equipping this shield briefly. The ring, though, it is essential for any farm you're going to do. Great for trash. Anytime there's lots of mobs, this is going to be really good. The whole farm, depending on your experience with the grind for this and how much gold you have, it'll take anywhere from probably maybe 5 hours if you're really, really good at this, up to probably 15 hours. There's a lot of parts where just spending gold can really expedite the process. And then we've got Neltharion's Tear. This one you guys are probably pretty familiar with off Neff. Just good static spell power, spell hit, trinket, really good early on, usable for a bit. And then we've got Styline's Impeding Scarab. You guys are probably familiar with this from BWL, but it just gives a lot of combat table coverage, which we'll talk about more soon if you don't already understand what that is. But there's just fairly limited trinket options. Really in TBC, there's just limited kind of gear options in general that have specific stats you might be looking for. So this one can easily fit into sets early on. Then Glyph of Deflection. This one's pretty similar to the Nomergon auto blocker from Badges of Justice, but just block value on use. This can be really good for mega pulls. We were talking earlier about high volume, low damage style damage coming into you. In this kind of situation, this trinket's incredible. It will really, really reduce your damage taken. Let's say you're taking like 230 damage from blocked attacks. This will make those attacks do 0 damage. Even if you have a lot of attacks incoming, you'll take significantly less damage when you have an on-use like this. Also gives a little bit combat table coverage, a little bit of static block value as well. The Mark of the Champion. This is a great one. It's from the Kel'Thuzad Phylactery quest. 85 spell power static versus undead and demons. There are tons of undead and demons in this expansion. Great trinket. If you can get it, it's usable for pretty much the whole expansion. Now, Flame Wrath. This one's really fun. Scales with spell power. It's from BRD. The most common and kind of infamous use case for it is you proc this right before you pull Morose and Karazhan. You have this shield up. Morose is a very short fight. Lots of mobs in the fight too. This is going to just decimate them. It does an insane amount of damage. It scales 1-to-1 with spell power. You're just going to do crazy damage with this. The logs from Last Wrath Anybody who procced this and went into Moreau's, it was their top damage source. They did like 4,000 DPS for the fight. It's really crazy for that kind of situation. Short fight, several mobs hit kind of thing. And having trash available to pre-proc it right before you go in. Fortitude of the Scourge. This is a shoulder enchant, but it's the only stam shoulder enchant. Also gives you a little bit of armor. This is the EHP shoulder enchant. It's the only one there is for things like Brutalis, maybe week 1 Illidan, stuff like that. This is pretty nice. And then last one we got here is the Restrained Essence of Saffron. This is a very good just archetype of trinket, a static spell power with a spell power on use. We're going to use several of these throughout the expansion. Icon of the Silver Crescent comes to mind. It's a staple of prop values in TBC. Probably the first thing you're going to buy with your badges. It's awesome. You'll use it the entire expansion, at least for the swap for trash. One of the really nice things on trash is each pull you can kind of swap your trinket and always have some sort of on-use spell damage increase. These kind of spell power increase for 20-second, 2-minute cooldown kind of trinkets, it's nice to just have a few of these in your bags. You can swap through them on trash as you're going through. And then that brings us to the Badge of Justice items. So Icon of the Silver Crescent, which I just mentioned. As you can see, it's not even that much better than Restrained Essence of Saffron. So Restrained Essence is pretty good, but you can get this right at 70 Badges of Justice. This is a great one. You'll use it at least for trash, if not just as your kind of primary boss threat trinket for the entire expansion. The Librum of Repentance, this is a very important one too. It gives 42 block rating while Holy Shield is active. This makes your uncrushed sets really easy to put together. It ends up being, I think, around 5%, maybe 4.5% block chance, which just helps a ton for putting together Uncrush when in your Librum slot you can get this much combat table coverage. Also from Badges of Justice, you'll want to get that right away. The Face Guard of Determination really helps you put together Uncrushed sets early. You just don't have a lot of stats to play around with. Having this extra combat table coverage on this one item can just open up the rest of your gear, let you make all sorts of swaps elsewhere. This one really helps. Basically any Uncrushed set is going to auto include this. Then we've got the Ring of Unyielding Force. This is an EHP ring. It is okay. If you're going to be main tanking Magtheridon, it's a great ring for that. Possibly for week 1, Malchezaar in Karazhan, but those are really going to be probably the only 2 use cases for phase 1. But there are other options too. The Violet Signet of the Great Protector from Karazhan Rep is one you're going to be grabbing because it's just the best EHP ring. The Karazhan spell damage ring isn't the best spell damage ring. There are several other better rings. So this one just ends up being kind of the one to get. And then you also can combo it with this other ring that's from Shade of Varan. You don't really need to get Unyielding Force, but if you're farming tons of badges and you got nothing else to spend them on, it's something you can get. The Necklace of the Juggernaut, decent combat table coverage ring, decent EHP on it. There is the Barb Choker Discipline 2, which is better. So really, this is just kind of one where if you have lots of excess badges, sure, you can grab it, but probably not worth it. The Nomergon Auto Blocker, this is a decent one to eventually get. The Nomergon Auto Blocker, this one's decent to eventually get. As I mentioned before, this kind of on use can really open up some of the mega pull kind of stuff for trash, but it's pretty niche use. So it depends if, it's going to be useful to you or not, then it's a good grab. Otherwise, it's just kind of whenever you happen to have that many badges. if you are going to do the block strat on Reliquary of Souls Phase 1, it is good for that too. The Azure Shield of Koldara. This one, it probably isn't going to be something you want. There's several other shields. Alderai Legacy Defender is going to be kind of the best for the phase. Crest of Shatar, this one you can just get from rep. The Shield of Impenetrable Darkness from Karazhan. There's lots of options here. You'd really only pick this up if you just somehow haven't gotten any shields after you've gotten the more important things. The Mazthuril Honor Shield, best pure damage shield. You'll put this into uncrit threat sets. That'll pretty much be its use. Uncrush sets, you're most likely using one of these other shields. All right, let's talk heroic items. So in this section, we also kind of have to mention the PvP items because the good heroic items also have kind of corresponding PvP items that can be situationally better too. The Marshal's Lamellar Boots, Bracers, and Belt from Honor. You can use these mostly for uncrit sets. The uncrush sets, you're really going to want this extra combat table coverage you're going to get on these pieces. These ones are really nice too because they have some combat table coverage and they have spell power on them. But they are also a bit harder to get. First off, we've got the Boots of the Righteous Path from Shattered Hall's Heroic. These spell damage, defense, and Sam, solid boots, but could take you a lot of runs. I think last time it took me 15 maybe. So you may be grinding for that, whereas these PvP ones you can kind of get for free generally. The Bracers of Dignity, these ones are great, but they come from Heroic Arcatraz, which is maybe the hardest Heroic. It's definitely up there. Heroic Blood Furnace, definitely a contender too. But anyway, it's a pretty tough Heroic, pretty tedious. This one I think took me another 15 or 20 runs to get. Those are long runs too. Whether or not this is going to be worth it to you, that's up to you. But you do also have that option of the PvP item as well. The Girdle of Valorous Deeds, this one, 5-stat item. It, like the others, has defense and spell power, but it also has shield block rating. Anytime you see shield block rating, you pretty much should be thinking, oh, that's a great combat table coverage item, because shield block rating is the most efficient way to get combat table coverage by quite a bit. Just this small amount of shield block rating on here gives 2% combat table coverage. So this just makes Uncrush threat sets a lot easier to put together. Alternatively for this one, on top of just, you know, the PvP one for like an uncrit threat set, you also have the Crimson Girdle option. This one has lots of CTC on it, also 2 sockets. So if you wanted to, you could put spell power gems in there, and it actually makes it look pretty similar to the Girdle of Valorous Deeds. If you're throwing 18 spell power in there with gems. The Gauntlets of Dissension are good pre-base. They do get replaced quickly though. This is not really one you're going to go out of your way for, but if you happen to get it, great. All right, now let's talk about tier. The first thing we want to talk about is these Justicar shoulder guards. These are crazy. They're a 6-stat item with 2 sockets. I'm pretty sure they're over budget. They're just way too good. They have everything we want on them. They have defense, shield block rating, spell damage. Whenever you see that trifecta, you should probably be thinking this is a very, very good piece, especially for a uncrushable threat set. But then on top of that, we also even get some block value and 2 sockets. These shoulders are insane. They're so good. You're going to combo that for a long time with the Justicar chest guard. This is a great shield. It has the trifecta. We love that defense, block rating, spell power. By using both of these, we are going to get our 2-set bonus, which is 10% more Seal of Righteousness damage, which is awesome because that is a significant part of our total damage. You're going to be looking at anywhere from 15 to 25% of your overall damage for a fight coming from Seal of Righteousness, meaning that bonus gives you a 1.5 to 2.5% overall damage increase. A really good set bonus. Even in tier 5, phase 2, you will be keeping this 2 set pretty much always on. This is one that's going to last you into tier 6. Once you start getting that tier 6 gear, you can replace this, but this combo right here, you want to get as soon as you can. It's usable for a very long time, and it is great. There's also the 4-piece bonus, which increases your holy shield damage by 15. That usually ends up being about a 0.5 to 1% damage increase. It's all right. The pieces in general are decent. It just depends how it fits into your overall set. It is going to be a little bit tougher to fit the 4-piece into an uncrushed set just because we have very limited stat options at the moment. We don't have a huge amount of stats available to us, but any uncrit set, you can definitely use the 4-piece really easily. Other items we have, Figurine of the Colossus. This is sick for farming. It's good early too, just for the combat table coverage. I mean, 4% combat table coverage for an uncrushable set. It'll just open up more options on your gear to do stuff elsewhere. The heal is, I mean, anywhere from insanely broken to not really meaningful, depending on what kind of stuff you're fighting. If you're fighting like Magtheridon, this is going to do like nothing. If you're fighting a ton of mobs while you're farming Strat or Skolo, this is going to make you immortal for 20 seconds. Definitely a really nice one to pick up if you plan to farm at all. And as I mentioned, great for early uncrushed sets. It's from Shared Halls, which you'll probably be doing anyway to get rep, and then probably running the heroic version 2 to try to get your boots. So you should just got to get this along the way. Shouldn't have to really go out of your way for it. The Librum of the Eternal Rest, you can get this in Sethic Halls. Hopefully you can just pick it up while you're leveling. Increases Consecration damage by 47. Great for any farming set or just AoE trash kind of threat set. You'll use that situationally the whole expansion. The Ruby Drape of the Mysticant. So last time we played TBC, this took me something like 42, 43 weeks of Karazhan to get. Definitely pick this up as soon as you can. It's usable for the rest of the expansion for boss threat sets. It is very, very good. Do what you gotta do to get this. You know, pay off your caster DPS, whatever you gotta do. This is a must get. The Goblin Rocket Launcher. This is an awesome one from engineering. 45 SAM trinket, not unique, so you can equip 2 of them. Anytime you need a big EHP boost, double equip these. This is good for maintaining Magtheridon. Can be good for early Malchezaar, like week 1 Malchezaar, that kind of stuff. Seal of the Exorcist is a really good ring you can get. Nice little threat ring. Has some resilience, so you get some uncrit from it. But spell power, spell hit, we love both of those things. 50 spirit shards. You'll get these from the Terakar Tower event, PvP event. You can get them from the dungeons after you win the event. Once you have 50 of them, just go to the vendor and you buy it. So this is a pretty easy one to get, potentially. Depends how good your faction is at winning the event. All right, so now let's get to professions. Aldor or Scryer? That's what everybody wants to know. It's the age-old debate. I prefer Aldor for Prop Alley. Either one's fine, though. It's not a big difference at all. Basically, the difference is Aldor gets a little bit better shoulder enchant. Scryer gets a little bit better combat table coverage shoulder enchant. The spell power shoulder enchant is going to be used more than the combat table coverage shoulder enchant throughout the expansion. So I prefer to just have a slightly better spell power shoulder enchant. The difference is very minimal, though. So if you love Scryer, it's totally fine to go for it. Scryer does also get the Scryer's Blood Gem, which is a pretty nice early trinket. Spell power on use, 1 minute 30-second cooldown though, so you can use it a little bit more often. It does have spell hit rating, which is a boss stat mainly because it's so easy to cap spell hit on trash. This part is probably going to be completely useless to you if you swap to it for trash. That is one thing to keep in mind. Whereas there's some other trinkets that do have effects like passive spell power. Icon of the Silver Crescent, the Saffron Essence we talked about earlier. Those ones have passive spell power that's great for trash, and they have the on use that's also great for trash. This can be a good trash swap just for the on use. It just isn't quite as good as some of the other options, but it is a solid early boss threat trinket. As for the rest of the reps, Cenarian Circle is probably the highest value one. You can get Ashen's Gift. This is a spell hit, spell power ring. This ring is used for a long time for your boss threat sets. It is the longest lasting rep item outside of, Helm Enchant and that kind of thing. Also, you have a Prebis neck option. There's so many different ways that you can build the Prebis set, but this one can fit into a Prebis set. From Shatar, this is our Helm Enchant, the Glyph of Power. You're going to use this like 99% of the time as your Helm Enchant. It's very rare that you use anything else. You pretty much always want to have this as your Helm Enchant. Only requires Revered though. Definitely make sure you get this pretty early. You can also get Zuri's Gift, which is another trash swap trinket for the on use. It has spell crit rating, which isn't great for us, especially on trash where, our Consecration can't crit. So we're doing a higher percentage of damage that can't even benefit from the crit. It does have the on use that will be nice to cycle through just for a little bit extra threat as you're going through trash. Then we have the Prebis Shield. This is great. Means Shatar is a good rep target to focus, since you'll get both the Helm Enchant and this Prebis Shield. And then next we've got the Gavel of Unearthed Secrets. This is just one of our Prebis weapon options. Something you'll see debated sometimes is which one's better, the Gavel or the Sword from Thrallmar / Honorhold. This one's a faster, they both have, the same amount of spell power, but the sword one's faster, the gavel is slower, but Seal of Righteousness damage is based on the speed of the weapon. So you'll actually do the same amount of Seal of Righteousness damage over time, regardless of what your weapon speed is. So this doesn't really matter. The speed, all it's really going to do is make you get less parry haste. You're just swinging less often. You have less chance to do a melee and then get it parried. The main benefit of the sword is just more consistent threat output. Since you swing faster, it's not as big of a deal if your attack is like dodged or parried. Whereas with this, you're swinging less often. A dodge or parry is going to set you back a little bit because it's going to be a bit before you get your next chance to swing and hopefully land it and then hit. And you also won't be hit capped either. So you do have a fairly high chance to not land your melee attacks. This just doing more volume gives you more opportunities to do threat, and it'll just be more consistent. This will be a little bit chunkier on the threat. This one also does have more stam, which we love. Less spell crit, which we don't really care about too much. It's not one of our better stats. This one has more spell crit, less stam. Overall, Gavel's a little bit better, but either one's fine. As long as you have one of them, you're good to go. The Keepers of Time rep is one of the best kind of bang for your buck reps. You can get revered just while you're leveling up pretty easily. From Keepers of Time, you can get these awesome legs. If you have these right when you ding, these are great early. 3 sockets, lots of stam. These are great for any set where you're trying to stack a lot of HP. You can also turn them into a balance leg. Let's say we throw 3 spell power gems in here. We have 27 spell power on here. You can make it more of an all-around leg like that, or you can put all stam gems in. You can buy multiples of these and you could build them all different ways, whatever you want to do. Really versatile, really good legs, especially right when you ding. Also, there's the Continuum Blade. This is also at Revered. Really great right when you ding as well. 121 spell power, some spell hit. This, if you're limited on time, you can even use this as your prebis if you don't have time to farm the rep for one of the other weapons we mentioned before. On top of both of those, you'll also get the combat table coverage Helm Enchant. This will probably be the first Helm Enchant you get just because of how easy it is to get Keepers of Time Revered and the fact that you get 2 other great rewards at Revered as well. Early on when you're trying to get Uncritable or get some extra combat table coverage, you can use this. Ideally though, we are using the spell hit, spell power, Helm Enchant pretty much all the time. Karazhan rep. We talked earlier about the EHP ring. It's the best EHP ring. You can use it into phase 2 and 3 even. The Archmage ring, the spell power ring, isn't really worth getting. There's tons of other spell damage rings, and most of them are better than this. As you're leveling, you can get the Sporgar shield. This one is useful for farms at level 70 as well. For anything that's going to live long enough to get good value out of the proc. Basically, it puts a stacking dot on things that you block. It's also just a good shield to get at level 62, which is when you can equip it. As for the order of reps, Keepers of Time, Revered, you can get that just while you're leveling. Right when you ding, you'll be able to grab, 3 solid pieces. After Keepers, Shatar is a great choice. You're going to get your long-term Helm Enchant. You're going to get your pre-base shield, and you're going to get a potential threat trash trinket swap. Then you can grab Cenarian Circle, pick up a potential pre-base neck, as well as your base boss threat ring that you'll use for a very long time. After that, I would go for one of the weapon reps, either Lower City or Thrallmar. It doesn't really matter. If you find yourself happening to run one over the other, then that's fine. Just use that one. These weapons also are not going to last you very long. You will get a guaranteed better weapon from Arena, and they made some changes to Arena too. You're going to start at 1500 rating, as well as weapons only requiring 1700 rating now. You only have to get 200 rating from where you start from to what the weapon requires. The biggest thing is just going to be accumulating those arena points, but there is a guaranteed BIS weapon waiting for you without too much effort. All right, as for the rotation, we have a few different ones we'll use depending on what we're doing. The crush rotation, when you're fighting bosses where you want to be uncrushable, would be prioritizing Holy Shield, gives you a ton of block chance. If you're using the Librum of Repentance, it's going to give you even more block chance. After that, Consecration, Exorcism, Judgment, Hammer of Wrath, Avenger Shield, and then Blessing Spam. We'll talk more about Blessing Spam soon too. If you're fighting a boss where you don't need to be uncrushable, you can do a little bit higher threat rotation, prioritizing Consecration, then Exo, then Judgment, Hammer of Wrath, Holy Shield, Avenger Shield, Greater Blessing Spam. One thing to mention too, you won't always have Avenger Shield. This is just thrown in here in case you do. And it does have a cast time, so you will want to ideally weave it between boss auto attacks. For AoE trash, Consecration is king, Holy Shield, then Exorcism, Judgment, Greater Blessing Spam. For pre-pull, you're pretty much always going to want to have Seal of Righteousness rolling on you already. You're also going to want Holy Shield up on you with good remaining time as well. On the pull, you're casting Avenger Shield if you have it. Then you're casting Exorcism if it's a demon or undead. Then Judgment of Righteousness Consecration, recasting Holy Shield. Potentially, if it's an uncrush situation, you may move Holy Shield up. Depends what the remaining time is on your precasted Holy Shield. Now let's talk spell coefficients. Prop A scales with spell power. These are important to understand because they let you know how much damage you're actually getting from your spell power. Avenger Shield gets almost nothing, so 13.57%. That means if you have 100 spell power, you're only getting 13.57 more damage on Avenger Shield. Not good scaling. Consecration, on the other hand, 95.2%. You're getting 11.9% per tick. There's 8 ticks of Consecration. Over the duration, 95%. This is one of the things that makes Prop A so much better in TBC is in vanilla, it was 30-something%. It got basically tripled, and it's a lot better now. Exorcism, 42.86%. This is something to keep in mind too. Exo at 42.86, Judgment of Righteousness at 71.43. So depending on your spell power, there could come a point where Judgment of Righteousness will actually be more damage per press. So kind of keep an eye on how hard you're hitting with these two abilities. How much you can look at your logs, see how much damage per cast you're doing, and kind of decide which one you want prio. But early on, Exo will be a bit better, but as you get spell power, you can evaluate whether or not you want to move Righteousness Judgment up. Seal of Righteousness, it is based on weapon speed, so it effectively makes it so that you don't really care what the weapon speed is. Seal of Vengeance, 3.4% per tick. We'll talk about this a little bit later, but for a few reasons, we don't really use Seal of Vengeance in this expansion. Also, Judgment of Vengeance, poor scaling compared to Judgment of Righteousness. Seals and Judgments. Seal of Righteousness is the main seal we're going to use. It cannot be fully resisted, but can be partially resisted. Seal of Vengeance, to summarize it, more trouble than it's worth. One of the problems with this expansion, it doesn't have 100% chance to proc like later expansions. If you're used to like the Wrath version, it is not nearly as good as that version. Also, we don't stack melee hit and expertise in this expansion, meaning you're going to have a huge chance for your auto attacks to not land. Your Seal of Vengeance already doesn't have 100% proc chance. You couple that with the fact that your white attacks are constantly missing as well, getting dodge parried, etc. That all just kind of adds up to the stacks falling off. Last time we played TBC, people tried to get a little fancy with like weaving SOV and SOR. It doesn't really work very well just because of how sporadic the SOV procs are. It's not really reliable. So you can spend a while like stacking up a 5-stack and then it'll just immediately fall off. So technically, if played perfectly, it can be a slight DPS and threat increase, but it's so small and it's so annoying to deal with that it's not really worth it in my opinion. Seal of Command, this only requires 1 point in ret. This can be situationally useful. So we talked earlier about the 2-hand prot stuff you can do. Obviously, this is essential for that. It would be great for that. You can potentially do it with a 1-hander as well. We'll talk about that a little bit later. As an off-tank, though, you will have a lot of opportunities to swap to a 2-hander. Let's say Feral's tanking. You don't have anything you need to tank for a little bit. You throw on the 2-hander, you do some seal twisting, then swap back to your 1-hander shield when it's your turn to tank something. If you're off-tanking as a prop A, that is a super common way to use Seal of Command outside of, the degen kind of parsing stuff we talked about earlier. Seal of Blood / Martyr. This is used with Seal of Command to seal twist. Seal of Command, you're generally using rank 1 Seal of Command because you're not going to be judging it. The increased rank of Seal of Command only increases the judgment damage, not the proc damage, meaning you don't lose anything by using rank 1 Seal of Command if you're never judging it. So this is kind of the bread and butter combo. You are in Seal of Command, and then for your twist, you go into Seal of Blood, and then you would judge Seal of Blood after that. Seal of Wisdom, kind of just used when you're completely not very common in raids to use this. It would be more of like a soloing kind of thing. Seal of Light, just when you need self-sustain, it's just going to be kind of situational use while you're soloing things. Judgment of the Crusader, you'll put this up if there's no ret pally to put it up. They most likely will be talented into the increased crit chance from Judgment of the Crusader. So they are the ones who would generally be putting that up. But this is an essential debuff. It gives you a ton of extra spell power. Very important for your threat. You always want this debuff to be up, but normally it will be handled by a ret pally. You could run into situations in Karazhan, for example, where you don't have a ret pally, much smaller raid size. Maybe you just don't have a ret in the raid. That would be a time like you might want to actually spec into the improved Seal of the Crusader, which gives you that extra crit on Judgment of the Crusader, and you would be judging that. Judgment of Wisdom, generally going to be put up by the Holy Pally. If there isn't one, that would be the one you would put up. Judgment of Light is the main one you're going to be putting up as a prop pally, but it also isn't essential for a lot of things, which means you don't necessarily have to put it up. During prog, it's definitely a good idea to put it up on pretty much everything. As you're in farm, there's going to be a lot of situations where this is not even worth putting up. For seal twisting, I would definitely check out Surveillant. I'll have his seal twisting videos linked in the description. He is a ret pally gamer, definitely knows a lot more about seal twisting than I do, but the main thing is you get the most value out of it when you're using a two-hander. As I mentioned before, rank 1 Seal of Command into Seal of Blood is the kind of bread and butter. Basically how it works is 0.4 seconds before your auto attack goes off, you have a window where you can press a seal and you'll get the benefit of 2 seals being able to proc, but Seal of Command and Seal of Righteousness are the only 2 that can twist both ways, meaning that they can be the first seal active, and then you can activate another seal and have that opportunity to proc multiple seals. If you did like Seal of Blood first and then Seal of Command, Seal of Blood wouldn't actually have a chance to proc. It can only be twisted into, it can't be twisted out of like Seal of Command can. So the bread and butter is just Seal of Command is already active, and then during that 0.4 second window, before your auto attack's going to go off, that's where you would press Seal of Blood. Then you would have a chance to proc both Seal of Command and Seal of Blood off the same auto attack. There is potential that one-hand seal twisting could be viable. I need to see more data on this before I can really say for sure. Once we get into TBC, we have some logs of this stuff. Then I'll update the guide, based on that information and have more info in this section about that. This is a little diagram from Surveillant that kind of shows you. So during this part of the window, you can press anything you want. After this part, you need to stay off GCD to be able to press your seal. This is your target window. This is that 0.4 seconds leading up to the auto attack. There is also this thing called the late twist. So this is where you press your seal and then your auto attack's going to go off with the opportunity to proc 2 seals. After that auto attack goes off, you press your Judgment while you still have 2 seals active. The Judgment will consume the lowest duration seal, leaving you with your seal intact. So you get a Judgment cast, but your seal is still on you. This is mainly just useful for one-hand twisting, because you can do like max rank Seal of Command, max rank Seal of Righteousness, and 2-way twist with those. For twisting, you are going to want some kind of swing time or WeakAuras. Surveillant has some. I would definitely check out his videos. As I said before, he knows way more about seal twisting than I do. He is the expert to go to for that. Now let's talk about Consecration. So Consecration is kind of a weird spell. It has 9 total events. There's 1 Consecration cast effect, so that's right when you cast Consecration. It has some unique properties, and then there's 8 individual ticks of damage after that. So the Consecration cast effect, it's right when you cast Consecration. It can proc Wrath of Cenarius. It can be resisted. The resist doesn't actually really do anything, though, except help you proc things, basically. Like it can proc the Eye of Magtheridon trinket. It doesn't reduce your damage in any way, though. It is kind of just a cosmetic resist, but it also procs things like Eye of Mag. It will show as a resist in the floating combat text and the combat log. No effect on damage. The resist will be reduced by spell hit. It does also have some weird interactions. When the ghosts in SM and Skolo summon illusion ghosts, this will actually insta kill them. And then Consecration damage tick. So this is 8 individual events, 1 tick every 1 second. Each tick can resist, but they will not show as resist in the combat log or floating combat text. The only way you can know they resisted is by going to Warcraft logs, looking at the timestamps of your consecration damage and noticing that there's ticks missing. It might say a tick at 2 seconds, 4 seconds, 5 seconds, 6 seconds, 8 seconds. So you actually had 2 resists in there just from the missing timestamps. And we can reduce these through spell hit. It just is really janky and doesn't really give you good feedback on it. You can also extend the range of Consecration by jumping when you press it. All AoE spells in Classic gain a couple extra yards when you jump. Also great for sappers. Greater Blessing spam. This is a unique way prop allies can generate threat. Basically, by buffing people, you generate threat. The amount of threat you get, you can see in this table here. This is the amount of threat per player. If you have 5 players, you would multiply this by 5 that are getting buffed. So 5 shamans, for example, really common that you'll be doing your blessing spam on shamans just because most raids will have 5 of them. It'll probably be the class you have the most of, but in general, you just want to blessing spam on whatever class you have the most of. All you're going to do, you have a macro that targets a player you want to buff with a greater blessing, and you're just going to spam that. It is like your lowest priority button press pretty much always, but definitely a really good tool to have in your toolkit. Also, range doesn't matter on it. It'll generate threat on things from all the way across the room too. One kind of weird mechanic involved with this is social groups. Mobs are sometimes part of what's called a social group. So let's say there's like a pack of 3 and they're all part of the same social group. When you cast your blessing for threat, it'll be divided by the number of mobs in the same social group. If there's 3 mobs in the social group, each one will get 1/3 of the total threat assigned to them. There are a lot of weird situations though where mobs that you might think are in the same social group actually aren't. Flames of Bazanoth, for example, on Illidan, different social groups. So you will actually generate full threat using blessing on each one of those. There's also the example of Muru. You'll generally have like 3 different social groups going at one time. The Void Sentinel is its own social group. Each humanoid pack is its own social group, meaning the front of the room pack and the back of the room pack, different social groups. Each pack would have blessing threat divided by 3 instead of them all being included together and dividing it by 6. So you get a little bit more threat that way. It is just something you kind of got to figure out. Generally, mobs that spawn together will be part of the same social group, but not always. As for which blessing you're going to use, you can kind of just go off this table, but in reality, you're just going with whatever blessing makes the most sense with your pally power assignments. It's not something you need to stress over very much. The threat between all of them is close enough. Managing mana is a huge part of playing prop pally. One of the most important things is drink walking. This is a really important concept to learn. So we're gonna watch this super old video I have here. Of drink walking, but basically you're gonna need a WeakAuras that gives you a mana tick timer as this tick timer is going. So you want to press your drink button as it reaches the end and you're gonna get mana back. So you can see here I'm just running forward and I'm getting 400 mana back every time I press that. This makes it really easy to keep your mana up. You're running between trash pulls, you're spamming this, and you know, depending on how much time you have between each trash bowl, you could potentially get all your mana back. That is definitely one of the best tools you have as a prop guy. It's something you want to master. It honestly just unlocks the class. I feel like this class will often have mana issues, and this pretty much negates all of them. On top of that, carry lots of mana pots with you. Don't be afraid to just spam those. If you're in a dungeon, your healer's just drink. You're going to have to wait for them anyway, most likely. Just drink when they drink. You can also just stop using mana once you secure threat. There will be tons of situations where you have, let's say, a 10k threat lead on a mob that's at 20%. There's no need to press a max rank Consecration. It's just going to use up a lot of mana. You can just stop casting completely. Alternatively, you can use downrank spells. Let's say you don't quite have enough of a threat lead to fully stop casting spells. You can use like rank 1 Consecration, rank 3 Consecration, something that costs less mana but will keep threat on you. A big part of this is having a threat differential WeakAura. That'll just put a number next to the nameplates of mobs, showing you how close the next on threat is to pulling threat. So you can very quickly just look at that and know that you're totally in the clear to completely stop casting, or maybe you need to do that rank 1 Consecration. For spell hit, one of the annoying parts of TBC, it caps at 99%. No matter how much spell hit you have, you'll always have a 1% chance to miss. For mobs that are the same level as you, it'll be a 3% chance, meaning your precision talent just makes you spell hit capped against those mobs. A lot of trash is same level. So you will often be spell hit capped by default. +1 level mobs 4%. Between precision and like your spell hit helm enchant, you'll pretty much be there, and you'll probably have a little bit of extra spell hit on your gear too. It is pretty rare that you'll have less than like 5% spell hit between precision, helm enchant, and 1 or 2 random pieces. So you should pretty much always just be spell hit capped on trash. The highest level trash is generally +2 levels, and even +2 levels is a little bit more rare. Most of it is +1 level or +0. +3 level mobs are pretty much just bosses. Boss mobs are always 3 levels higher than the max player level. For boss mobs, you need 16%. So the cap goes up quite a bit here, from 5 to 16% between these levels. 16%, you'll likely not hit that till quite a bit later. Don't worry about getting fully spell hit cap. Pick it up as you're able to. The abilities affected by spell hit: Judgment, Consecration, Exorcism, Seal of Vengeance, Application, which is another thing that makes Seal of Vengeance annoying, is they can also just miss on its own. Holy Shield, Red Aura, Thorns, Righteous Defense. Spell hit works on the bulk of what you're doing, making it very, very good. Physical hit effective abilities: Avenger Shield, Hammer of Wrath. Also to note, neither of them are affected by precision because they're technically ranged abilities, and precision is specifically melee hit. Uncritable and Uncrushable, 5% reduced chance to be crit is needed for same level mobs. That will go up by 0.2% for each level the mob is above you. Bosses are always 3 levels above max player level, so 5.6% is what you're aiming for to be uncritable by bosses. This is acquired through both defense and resilience. You just, for example, for boss uncritable, you need 5.6% reduced chance to be crit combined from defense and resilience. It doesn't matter how much you're getting from either side of that. They just need to add up to 5.6%. This is another reason why the PvP gear is very usable for us. A lot of it has a good amount of spell power and a gem slot that we can put extra spell power in. On top of that, they typically have higher stam, and they have resilience, which gives us some crit reduction. Now, the combat table, in case you don't fully understand how this works, basically the game goes down this list here. miss, dodge, parry, block, crit, crush, normal hit. It's going to go down this list until the outcomes total 100%, and then it's going to stop. So if we reach 100% of outcomes here, the crit, crush, and normal hit are never reached. They can never happen. If, let's say, we have 25% miss, 25% dodge, 25% parry, 25% block, just to make it simple. These three cannot happen. Let's say we have that same miss, dodge, and parry, but we have 50% block. That extra block actually does nothing. Going from that 25 to 50, it's not going to do anything. So that's all just wasted stats, which means you really want to pay attention to this. Let's say your block is like 10% over cap. It's just doing nothing. Try to convert that into a stat that you're going to be able to use. That is just speaking on a like boss perspective though. Occasionally for becoming tankier for some trash pulls or adds on boss fights like Muru, for example, block rating can actually be good because you just won't have Holy Shield up 100% of the time if you're tanking 6 humanoid adds on Muru, for example. I also have a video from Cata where I go in even more detail about this. There are some irrelevant parts in there because it is specifically for Cata, but the same general principles apply. There's a few different terms people will use for this, either full combat table coverage, the abbreviation CTC, you'll see that a lot. Some people call block, miss, dodge, and parry avoidance. That's not exactly correct. Avoidance is really just miss, dodge, and parry. Block can be avoidance if you're fully blocking, but that's somewhat rare. Mainly in raids, it's rare. In older content, you can fully block quite a bit. But CTC is kind of the easy way to talk about just that combination of block, dodge, miss, and parry. Combat table coverage. Unhittable might be another term you'd hear for it. Pushed crit, crushes, and normal hits off the table. You're never getting hit. You're getting at worst blocked hits. Uncrushable is one of the more standard terms for it too. For bosses, you're going to need 102.4% combat table coverage. The reason you need a little bit more than 100% is because you lose 0.2% miss, parry, dodge, and block for every level a mob is above you, meaning they're going to take out 0.8% combat table coverage from you for each level. Bosses are 3 levels higher, so they're reducing your combat table coverage by 2.4%. That means we need to accommodate that. We go for 102.4. They subtract our 2.4, and that puts us at 100%. As we mentioned before, when these outcomes total 100%, the list stops. By accommodating that reduction, we are still at our 100% here, and these are the only 4 outcomes that can possibly happen. One site that people use a lot for building gear sets is 60upgrades.com. This is where I build all mine. It's really nice for throwing together gear, being able to look at all the stats, how it all kind of fits together. One thing you want to know though is when you mouse over total avoidance to see if you're uncrushable, you want boss avoidance Holy Shield here to be 100% or more. For this, they've already taken off that 2.4% reduction we talked about earlier. So you are not looking for the 102.4 here. You're only looking for 100%. They already subtracted that 2.4% for you. And they've also added this boss crush Holy Shield at the bottom too. You just want this to either be 0% or a negative number. There is an alternative way to get crit capped through combat table coverage. So normally you get it passively through defense and resilience. When you're looking at this, if your total outcomes is 100% here, crit is never reached. So you actually can't be crit. Even if you had 0% crit reduction from defense or resilience, you just had none at all. If you had 100% combat table coverage, you're not going to be crit. That said, your combat table coverage is very reliant on Holy Shield. Anything is going to take all your Holy Shield charges, then you will suddenly be critable. If you are slow to press your Holy Shield, you will be critable. Generally, you are going to just want that passive safety net of being uncritable through defense and resilience. There are a few bosses throughout the expansion that cannot crush, so you don't have to worry about uncrushable. The Kael'thas Phoenixes, technically they're boss mobs. They cannot crush. Asgalor in Hyjal, Archimonde in Hyjal, Mother Shiraz in Black Temple, Illidan in Black Temple, Kalikos in Sunwell, Brutalis in Sunwell, Felmis, and Entropius all in Sunwell. The general priority for stats, you want to get Uncritable, you want to get Uncrushable, you need enough effective HP to live, and then you pump in the spell hit and the spell power. Based on the old sims, we had spell hit and spell power roughly equal point for point. This is something that could potentially change when WoW Sims gets updated. For now, you can treat them as roughly equal point for point. The big thing with spell hit though is it gives more consistency. There's just going to be less variance in your pulls because you're going to be missing less often. You'll have more reliable threat. While they are roughly equal point for point, give the edge to spell hit just because it will improve your consistency. Block rating, awesome for combat table coverage. 7.9 rating is 1% block chance, whereas for dodge, 18.9 rating is 1%. If you want to get combat table coverage the most efficient way possible, it will be block. And then parry, even more rating than dodge to get 1%. It is the worst efficiency for combat table coverage. Defense is also great for combat table coverage, not quite as good as block rating, but better than dodge. It will give you a little bit of block, dodge, parry, and miss, and also reduce your chance to be crit. And then resilience, you can see here, resilience is actually a little bit more efficient than defense for becoming uncritable. Takes 25 times 2.3, over 50 rating to get 1% crit reduction from defense, whereas 39 from resilience. Resilience is something you'll use a lot in your threat sets for Uncritable, just allowing you to get more spell power and spell hit. For talents, we have a bunch of different options. One of the biggest deciders of what spec you might go is going to be Sanctity Aura. Gives 10% increased holy damage. This is just a buff you always want to have on you. If you don't have somebody else providing this, either a Ret Pally or a Holy Pally, Holy Pallies are a great source of this. They don't lose much by going Sanct Spec. This became popular more towards the end of TBC last time, but it really allows the prop value a lot more freedom in their talent choices. It helps quite a bit if you can get your Holy Pally to do that, if you aren't going to already have a Ret Pally with you. For the Sanct Specs, one of our big things, we pretty much always want 5 Reckoning. This is a Sanct Spec where you also get Imp Sanct Aura, so you're going to drop some combat expertise to get that. This will increase the damage of people in your group. If you're in an all healer group, you're probably going to be better off with combat expertise, but if, let's say, you're in the caster group, this is really, really nice for them. The Imp Seal of Righteousness build, this also actually affects Judgment of Righteousness too. This is a great one for single target threat and damage, but basically you're getting this Avenger Shield, you're getting all your typical prot stuff, but then you're only getting Imp Judgment, Benediction, and Deflection. No Pursuit of Justice, no Seal of Command. If you are somebody who is going to be frequently off tanking, you can also just take one out, put it in there too. Then we've got the Crusade build. This one, a little bit more AoE threat than the Imp SOR build. You're going to get Crusade. You're also going to get Pursuit of Justice. You'll get 2% more parry from deflection. This one's a little bit better for multi-target, whereas the Imp SOR one's a little bit better for single target. Then we have Deep Prot. This one is just all out survivability. You pick up Ardent Defender, max points, and all these things. For these anticipation points, they'll vary based on your gear. As you have more stats available on your gear, you may need fewer points in this, and you'll just kind of play around with this based on what your current gear is. Toughness is okay. You'll put some points in it. The amount of points you'll put in are going to vary based on what you're doing and also how many points you have in anticipation. Shield spec, the value really depends on what you're fighting with this. As we talked about earlier, high volume, low damage attacks is where shield block value shines. So if that's the kind of content you're doing, this will be better. Also, when your gear has more block value on it in the first place to get increased, that helps a lot too. Tier 5 and onwards, there is a little bit more block value available on stuff, so this may have more value. Then we have the Vengeance build. This is the go-to for farming, also for parsing, threat. This is what you would do for the two-hand stuff too. Obviously, you would put a point and seal of command if it's a two-hand parsing version of it. And then for farming precision, if you're fighting really low-level mobs, you don't even need precision. You can take these out, put them in toughness. For Blessing of Kings, you're just picking that up if you need to buff that on people. It's not something you need to have all the time. You'll kind of learn who's in your raids, what buffs you need to be able to provide. If you need to be able to provide kings, you can do that, no problem. Take a point out of, toughness, anticipation, whatever. Something down here. Vindication's kind of an interesting one. It won't actually reduce the damage mobs do. The 15% reduced attributes will actually lower the max HP of a lot of trash mobs. Meaning if you get the first hit on a trash mob and you proc Vindication, it'll have its HP reduced by 15%. So you effectively just in one hit it for 15% of its health. It's not really something you're going to take a lot. It's just kind of something interesting to know. Now let's talk about resistances. There's a really awesome resource for this by Royal Giraffe. In-depth resistance guide, tons of information in here. And there's also an awesome calculator that goes with this where you can plug in, it's already set for level 70. You can plug everything in. Boss attacking player is generally what you're going to be interested in. And then you can put in your resistance and the graphs will show you the possible outcomes. Like you can see here, 0% resist, 53% chance, 25% resist, 34% chance, etc. Just awesome tool for kind of figuring out your resist sets and how much you want. The resist cap in TBC is going to be 365. Elemental melee attacks are something you're going to run into semi-frequently. Hydros is the earliest big one. And then the Flames of Azeroth on Illidan. The elemental melee attacks can be resisted, dodged, and parried. They cannot be blocked. It is useless to cast Holy Shield against them. It's actually a good idea to even put a two-hander on because your armor isn't going to reduce the damage you're taking and you can't block. So you can just throw on a two-hander when you're fighting against elemental melee mobs. The two types of spells are binary and non-binary. Binary spells have a non-damage effect attached to them. They can only fully hit or fully resist, no partials. An example of this is Leotheris' Chaos Blast. It puts a debuff on you that increases your damage taken from future ones. Can only fully hit or fully resist. Resistance helps you fully resist it, which lowers your amount of stacks and makes you not get too many stacks that you'll get one-shotted basically. For non-binary spells, they only deal damage and they can fully hit or partially resist. The outcomes are a 0% resist, which is a safe full hit, 25% resist, 50%, or 75% resist. And elemental melee attacks are an example of this. On the resistance calculator, we have this little checkbox up here for binary or non-binary. And you can see it changes down here to resist, which is just no effect, or hit, full effect. Kind of know what type of spell you're trying to calculate your resist for. Get an actual accurate answer there. 244 resistance is an important benchmark to hit because full damage hits are completely pushed off the table. We can show this here. A 0% resist has a 0% chance of happening. That means just a full hit. And our worst outcome is a 25% resist. The average mitigation per point of resistance is 25% lower for points after 244. So the efficiency goes down past this point. This is generally going to be the big number you're looking for. Can go higher, but this is the main one to keep in mind. Elemental melee attacks can crit. Uncritable is still good. Now for consumables. There are a ton you can use. These are kind of the ones I would consider essential. Greater Arcane Elixir plus Gift of Arthas. That's the best combo. Gonna be the best combo of threat, but also raid DPS increase. Flask of Blinding Light is gonna be your most threat for personal gain. You will miss out on the raid DPS. And then Flask of Fortification, occasionally the extra HP can be good. For food, Blackened Basilisk, spell damage food, or Spicy Crawdad / Fisherman's Feast, just stam food, depending on what you need. For weapon, don't have Wind Fury. Superior Wizard Oil is what you'll use. For potions, Iron Shield Potion is kind of the main one. It's going to give you a ton of armor. That armor may let you play more offensive on your gear too, meaning Iron Shield Potion is often actually the best DPS potion, just because of the swaps on your gear it can allow you to make while still surviving. Mana potions, anytime you're going to go them, these are great. Free action potion, there's some stuff in the game that stuns you. You kind of just always want to have these with you as a tank just in case. For non-potion cooldown, Nightmare Seed is amazing, gives a bunch of HP. Lasts a while. Really, really good. Also allows you to play more aggressive with your set because you can pop this a little bit better than a health stone because it gives you that immediate heal, but also the extra HP lasts for a while too. Dark runes, anytime you're going to go these are good. Target dummy, these can be good. You can throw a bop on your target dummy too with a macro. They can tank stuff for you sometimes. Bombs, they carry super hard this expansion. Sapper Charge, both super and goblin. And then Dense Dynamite's just kind of the really cheap one to make. You're going to be using these like crazy, so this makes it a little bit more affordable. You are going to just be spamming these things. It helps a ton with Snap Threat on AoE packs. You get that Snap Threat, you have your Consecration down. Once it ticks a few times, everything's just kind of stuck to you. Scroll of Protection stacks with everything. These are cheap too. Just kind of always want these on you. These are some min-max options. Flask of Chromatic Wander just gives stats and resists. Can be useful for things like Illidan when you're doing resist sets. Swiftness of Zanza, increased move speed. Good for your speedrunning stuff. Sheen of Zanza, really, really niche, but you can reflect Deaden on Reliquary. When you first pop it, it has a guaranteed reflect. For your shield, you can use a greater ward of shielding, gives you a little absorb. Chest, greater rune of warding, also gives a little absorb. For potions, haste potion, really good for single target. Destruction potion, better for multi-target. Bombs, you can also use Fel Iron bombs. Arcane bombs to silence in Hyjal, and Goblin landmines, a little bit more damage. Scroll of Agility and Scroll of Strength, both stack with other stuff. If you want min-max, throw these on too. Blood Thistle is a horde only spell power buff. Scourge Band Fusion horde only also. I can't remember which one of these is the attack power and which one's the spell power, but one of these is attack power, one spell power against undead buffs. And then Oil of Immolation gives you a little bit extra AoE damage and threat. For Enchants, Glyph of Power, main one you're going to use pretty much always. Glyph of the Defender only if you absolutely have to for Uncrush or Uncrit. For Shoulder, you're pretty much always using the spell power. Combat table coverage, Shoulder enchant, only use if you really, really need to. For Cloak, you're mainly going to use greater agility. If you need slightly more combat table coverage for Uncrush, you can use Dodge. Greater agility will give you a tiny bit of armor, almost as much combat table coverage, and it'll give you a little bit of crit. Just slightly better. Can also do major armor if you need to min-max EHP, but generally you're going to do agility. For the resist fights, you have lots of options for resist cloak enchants. For frost though, you'd have to use major resistance, which is just an all resist enchant. For chest, primary one's going to be stats. If you really need to maximize EHP, you can use health. For bracer, you're mainly using spell power. Can use major defense if you need to for uncrush or uncrit. For maximizing EHP, you can use fortitude, stam one. On gloves, the highest threat option is going to be the 2% threat enchant for gloves. Major spell power is close though, and it actually provides damage, whereas threat just is threat only. I generally prefer to go the spell power just because it's almost the same and you get some extra damage out of it, but either of these is fine. Spell Strike, you can use this not boss only set, but it won't be useful on trash most likely because you should already be hit capped. For leg, you're pretty much always using Runic Spell Thread. You're only using Nethercleft if you have to for maximizing EHP, or boots if you need combat table coverage, dexterity, otherwise fortitude if you have Pursuit of Justice. If you don't have Pursuit of Justice, then Cat Swiftness for combat table coverage, or speed for stam. For weapon, you're just going major spell power, 40 spell power. Shield, generally you're going shield block. It gives almost 2% combat table coverage, which just opens up other stuff on your gear. Can go major stam if you need to maximize EHP. Fell Seal, Shield Spike if you want to maximize threat and damage, and you don't need to go Uncrush. You'll get more threat and damage out of making other swaps on your gear with getting this 2% combat table coverage here and being able to drop 2% elsewhere and pick up spell power there. So really just for like uncrit sets here, or farming. For professions, main one, engineering. The bombs are really important this expansion. Definitely go engineering. Enchanting is kind of the number 2. You get 2 12 spell power ring enchants. For phase 2, you can go blacksmithing briefly once you get the pattern for these boots. Boots of the Protector. These are the phase based boots, and they're usable until you get the Tide Stompers from Nagentis in phase 3. Last time we played TBC, I never saw the Nagentis boots drop a single time. I was stuck with bad boots until Sunwell, unfortunately. For me, this is definitely a must get because I made that mistake last time of not getting these. But basically, it's a pattern that drops in SSC TK. And once you get this and you have the mats for it, I would drop engineering because you probably have accumulated some good enchanting recipes by now. If you just put 0 effort into enchanting and have nothing of value for it, you can drop that instead. Pick up blacksmithing, craft the boots, then drop blacksmithing, because these only require blacksmithing to make but not to use. There's also a ring, a stat enchant you can do, but you're almost never going to use that. Pretty much always spell power. Jewel crafting does get some extra gems. They give a little bit of extra stats above replacement, but just not quite as good of a passive bonus as enchanting. So overall, enchanting's better. You will get the figurine Living Ruby Serpent from JC though. It is a decent trinket, but it's kind of a weird balance trinket. It's going to give you some stam and int and then a 5-minute cooldown on use. This is something you can swap to for trash sets. Generally, you aren't really going to need the stam, and if you do, you would usually prefer just going the 45 stam trinkets. But if you really want to go JC, it's not a big deal, and this is decent. All right, for group comps, healer group is usually the one the prop is going to fit easiest into. You really want your Holy Pie to spec Sankora for you, though, to free up your talent points, let you have a lot more choice in what you spec. If you're able to pick your group, the melee group is awesome. Ret gives you the Sankora, which frees up your talent points. Enhance gives you Wind Fury, gives you Unleash Rage. Warrior gives you Battle Shout. It's a huge single target DPS increase to be in the melee group. Caster group is good for AoE stuff. Also a single target increase, just not as good as the melee group. Some other stuff you can benefit from. Moon Kenora. Spell crit's not that great from us, but it's not nothing. Mana return from Shadow Priest, generally you're going to be okay. You take enough damage that Spiritual Attunement is all you need, and then you can Mana Pond or Dark Rune when you need to. Then Ferocious Inspiration is decent. Leader of the Pack is okay. You can get some defensive buffs too. Blood Pact from Imp, Commanding Shout from Warrior. Tree of Life, increased healing received. It is important to watch the Demo Shout and Thunderclap uptime. Cannot apply attack speed and attack power debuffs to yourself. You're reliant on other people. It's not always necessary that these are up, but a lot of your survivability is tied to these debuffs. So I would have a way to track that, and definitely give your warrior that's in charge of putting these up a WeakAuras to track it too if they don't already have one. Scorpion Sting and Insect Swarm are nice little min-max debuffs for stuff like Illidan, Brutality, Chalice when you get there. We got some macros. The taunt fix macro, just if your taunt fizzles for some reason, like you press your taunt, the mob just has no target for a brief moment, you'll get stuck with like that blue ring around your cursor and you have to like click before you can actually taunt again. This just removes that part so you can just mash taunt without having to do that click. Judgment and reseal, just cast a judgment and then cast Seal of Righteousness. Just make sure your judgment's off cooldown. Otherwise, it'll cast Seal of Righteousness and then it'll judge and you'll be left without a seal briefly. Mana pot all types, just every type of mana pot in the game. So you can just press this and it'll use your mana pots. It prioritizes using the ones that are a little bit cheaper. Healthstone all ranks uses any kind of healthstone you have. Smart water, this one's actually pretty awesome. It checks your bags to see if you have conjured mana biscuits, and if you don't, it will rewrite itself to use pure fed Draenic water. If you do have them though, it'll rewrite itself to use the mana biscuits. So kind of cool. This is the blessing spam one we talked about earlier. Blessing of protection, target of target. This is really good for AoE stuff. Let's say you're just at a point where you aren't able to taunt or like get threat on something and things are running to a warlock, you can just target bop them easily. If the mobs happen to switch targets back to you though, we also have a built-in cancel aura so that if you accidentally bop yourself with this, it'll cancel right away. Cancel aura, bop and bubble, great macro to have, just be able to cancel your immunities really quickly. This just tells you if you're uncrushable basically, but there are better WeakAuras for it too that you can use. And then we got some other random stuff. Mouse over, great to have mouse over macros on all your things you can cast on other people. Good to have start attacking on a lot of your stuff. Even a separate bind's good too. You can use this one to just put wizard oil on without clicking anything. Some add-ons I recommend are Plater, great nameplate add-on. I've got a profile for that too. You can use Pally Power, essential for any Pally player. Trinket menu makes swapping your trinkets on trash really easy and quick. WeakAuras, just amazing add-on, lets you create your own add-ons basically. And then here are some of my WeakAuras: Prop Pally Pack, Threat Differential, nameplate target of target, lets you see who mobs are targeting just on their nameplate. And then drink walk, I also have this drink walk included in my prop pack, so you don't actually need that if you get the pack. Then we've got Surveillant, Seal Twisting, Swing Timer. All of these I would say are pretty essential to have on a TBC Prot pally. And finally, we just have some additional resources, a threat graphing tool. You can put your logs into here and it'll show you a graph of threat throughout a fight. And then this is a nice little chart for TBC boss damage, shows you what can crush, how much damage things do, and just a nice little reference sheet. But that is everything. Thanks for watching, guys. I will have the link to a bunch of this stuff in the description, namely this whole written guide in the description for you. And hopefully this was helpful for you, but you'll have this written guide and I'll continue to update it throughout the expansion. Thank you guys for watching and I'll see you in the next one.